You don't need to be young to fall in love. And you don't need to be old to understand it. Love is not a destination. It is not a reward for being good or patient or beautiful. Love is a language that everyone speaks differently, but everyone understands when it is real. So let me tell you a story about love. Not a fairy tale. Not a list of rules. Just a quiet, honest conversation about what it means to hold someone's heart without breaking it. When you are 20, love feels like fire. It burns fast and bright. You want to be seen, touched, wanted. You send 100 messages a day. You check your phone every 3 minutes. You think that if someone loves you, they will never leave you on read. And when they do, your world collapses for an hour. Then they send a heart emoji, and the world rebuilds itself. That is the beauty of being 20. Everything is intense. Every fight is the end of the world. Every kiss is a promise. When you are 60, love feels like warm tea on a cold morning. It does not explode. It stays. You have learned that silence is not rejection. You have learned that a person can love you deeply and still fall asleep on the couch. You do not need constant proof. You have stopped counting the days since the last fight. You have stopped wondering if you are still attractive. Not because you don't care, but because you finally understand that love is not about being perfect. It is about being present. But here is the secret that both generations forget. Love is a practice, not a feeling. Feelings come and go like weather. Some days you wake up and you are not sure if you like the person next to you. That is normal. That is human. What matters is what you do on those days. Do you stay? Do you reach out your hand anyway? Do you make tea for someone who irritated you yesterday? That is love, not the butterflies. The choice. So let me give you the first thing that works for every age. Do something small every single day that says, I remember you. It can be a text that says, I saw your favorite flower. It can be a cup of coffee made exactly the way they like it. It can be a note left on the bathroom mirror. It does not have to be expensive. It does not have to be clever. It just has to be true. Young people think that big gestures prove love. They don't. Old people sometimes think that staying together is enough. It isn't. Love needs evidence. Daily, boring, tiny evidence. Let me tell you about a couple I knew. She was 22. He was 24. They argued about everything. Where to eat. What to watch. Whose turn it was to do the dishes. But every night, before sleep, he would touch her elbow. Just a light touch. No words. She never asked why. He never explained. 15 years later, they were still doing it. The arguments had changed. The faces had aged. But the elbow touch remained. That is ritual. And ritual is stronger than passion. Now let me tell you about another couple. They were 71 and 73. They had not held hands in years. Not because they didn't love each other, but because somewhere along the way, they forgot how. One day the wife said, "Hold my hand while we watch television." He was surprised, but he did it. The first minute felt strange. The second minute felt warm. By the end of the evening, they were sitting closer than they had in a decade. That is the thing about love. It is never too late to start again. You don't have to fix everything. You just have to start one small thing. If you are young, listen to me carefully. You are going to hurt people. Not because you are bad, but because you are learning. You will say things you don't mean. You will pull away when you are scared. You will stay too long in relationships that are not right. And you will leave too soon from ones that could have worked. That is how you learn. But please, learn this one thing as early as possible. Do not play games. Do not wait 3 hours to text back to seem cool. Do not pretend you don't care when you do. Honesty is not weakness. It is the only thing that actually works. If you are older, listen to me too. You have been hurt. Maybe you have built walls. Maybe you have stopped hoping for certain things. You think that passion belongs to the young. That is a lie. Bodies change. Energy changes. But the need to be desired does not go away. You are allowed to want a kiss that lasts longer than 2 seconds. You are allowed to say what you like in bed. You are allowed to flirt with your own spouse. Do not let age convince you that romance is embarrassing. Romance is not for the young. Romance is for the brave. Let's talk about fights. Every couple fights. The young fight about jealousy and time and who follows whom on social media. The old fight about money and children and why the trash wasn't taken out. The content changes. The pattern does not. Here is what works at any age: do not win. Winning a fight means your partner loses. And if your partner loses, your relationship loses. So instead of trying to be right, try to understand. Say, "Help me see what you are feeling." Then stop talking. Listen. Really listen. Not while planning your next argument. Just listen. Most fights end when one person feels heard. There is a trick that old couples know and young couples discover the hard way. When you are angry, do not say the first thing that comes to your mind. The first thing is usually a weapon. It is designed to hurt. Instead, wait 20 minutes. Take a walk. Breathe. Then come back and say, "I am angry, but I still love you." Those 7 words can save a relationship. Try them. They cost nothing. Now let's talk about technology. Because this is where generations collide. Young people live inside their phones. They check messages during dinner. They scroll while sitting next to each other. And then they wonder why they feel distant. Old people sometimes refuse to use technology at all. They call it cold. They miss messages because they don't see notifications. And then they feel forgotten. The solution is not to abandon phones or to bury your face in them. The solution is a rule. 1 hour a day of no screens together. No phones. No tablets. No television. Just you and your person. You can talk. You can sit in silence. You can cook. You can lie on the floor. But no rectangles. That 1 hour will change everything. And here is a tip for the young. Sometimes send a voice message instead of a text. Your voice carries warmth that letters cannot. The other person will hear your laugh, your hesitation, your tenderness. That is more intimate than any emoji. And here is a tip for the old. Sometimes send a text. Just a few words. Thinking of you. You looked nice today. Can't wait to see you later. It is not cold. It is a small bridge to their world. Let's talk about physical intimacy. This is hard for everyone to talk about, but let's try. When you are young, touch is often about excitement. It is about discovery. It is fast and hungry. And that is wonderful. But sometimes young people forget that touch can also be slow. You can hold hands without it leading to anything else. You can kiss for 5 minutes just because it feels good. You can lie with your head on their chest and listen to their heartbeat. That is also intimacy. Do not rush. You have time. When you are older, touch often becomes rare. You stop reaching out because you think it will lead to expectations, or because you feel insecure about your body, or because you have simply forgotten how to start. Here is what you need to hear. Your body is still beautiful. Not in the way it was at 20, but in a different way. It has lived. It has carried you. And the person who loves you wants to touch it. Not because it is perfect, but because it is yours. So reach out. Touch their arm. Play with their hair. Sit close on the couch. You do not need a reason. Now I want to tell you about something that works for every age. It is called the 5-second goodbye. Before you leave for work, or before you go to sleep, or before you hang up the phone, pause for 5 seconds. Look at the other person. Really look. Then say goodbye slowly. That pause says, "I see you." It says, "I am not taking you for granted." Try it tomorrow morning. It will feel strange at first. Then it will feel like a gift. Another thing, never stop dating your partner. Young people date until they become official, and then they stop. They stop dressing up. They stop asking questions. They assume that love will take care of itself. It will not. Old people sometimes think that dating is for the beginning. They think that after 20 years, you don't need to try anymore. That is also a mistake. You always need to try. Plan a terrible date. Go to a grocery store and buy each other snacks. Sit on a park bench and watch dogs walk by. It does not have to be expensive. It just has to be intentional. Let me tell you about a couple who had been married for 40 years. Every Friday, they went to the same diner. They ordered the same thing. They sat in the same booth. And every Friday, they asked each other the same 3 questions. What made you happy this week? What made you tired? What do you need from me this weekend? That was their ritual. It was not exciting. It was not romantic in a movie sense. But it kept them connected for 40 years. Rituals are stronger than passion. Passion fades. Rituals remain. If you are young, you might think that 40 years is impossible. You see divorce everywhere. You see couples who look tired. You wonder if love is even real. It is real, but it is not automatic. It is like a garden. You have to pull out the weeds. You have to water it even when you are tired. You have to protect it from storms. And sometimes you have to let it rest in winter. But if you keep showing up, it grows. Not in a straight line. Not without setbacks. But it grows. If you are older, you might think that the best years are behind you. That love is mostly memory now. That is not true. Many couples discover a second spring in their 60s and 70s. The children leave. The stress of careers fades. And suddenly, you have time to look at each other again. You can rediscover who you are without all the roles. Do not waste that chance. Go on a trip. Learn a dance. Stay up late talking like you did when you were 20. You are not too old for romance. You are just old enough to know what really matters. Now let's talk about forgiveness. This is the hardest part. Every long relationship has moments of deep hurt. Words that should not have been said. Silences that lasted too long. Sometimes even betrayal. You cannot go back. You cannot erase. But you can decide what to do next. Forgiveness is not forgetting. It is not saying that what happened was okay. Forgiveness is saying, I will not let this destroy us. I will not carry this forever. I am choosing to move forward. That choice is available at any age. But it is not easy. It takes time. It takes help sometimes. But it is possible. And here is something important. Forgive yourself too. You have made mistakes. You have been selfish. You have hurt someone you loved. That does not make you a monster. It makes you human. The question is not whether you have failed. The question is whether you are willing to try again. To say sorry. To change. To be better tomorrow than you were yesterday. That is all anyone can do. Let's talk about the small things. Because the small things are not small. They are everything. Making coffee. Washing the dishes without being asked. Remembering that they hate mustard. Sending a song that reminded you of them. Leaving the last piece of cake. Waking up early to drive them to the airport. These things are not glamorous. They will not get you likes on social media. But they're the bricks of love. Without them, the house falls. Young people sometimes wait for the big moments. The proposal. The anniversary. The vacation. But life is mostly small moments. The Tuesday night when you are both tired. The morning when no one slept well. The afternoon when you argued about nothing. How you act in those moments is who you are. Do not save your kindness for special occasions. Use it every day. Old people sometimes think that they have already done their share of small things. They think, I've been kind for 30 years. Now I deserve to rest. But love does not retire. The small things are still needed. Maybe even more than before. Because when bodies slow down and life gets quieter, the small gestures become louder. A hand on the shoulder. A warm blanket. A note that says, I'm glad you're here. Those things mean more at 70 than they did at 30. Let me tell you a truth that might be hard to hear. Love is not about finding the perfect person. That person does not exist. Everyone is annoying. Everyone is selfish sometimes. Everyone has secrets and fears and bad habits. The question is not, are they perfect? The question is, can I love this imperfect person for a long time? And the same question applies to you. You are not perfect either. You are difficult in your own ways. And yet someone is trying to love you. That is the miracle. Not perfection, but persistence. So, what do you do when love feels hard? When you look at the person next to you and feel nothing? First, do not panic. Feelings are unreliable. They come and go. Second, do something loving even if you do not feel loving. Make them tea. Ask about their day. Touch their hand. Often, the action creates the feeling. You do not wait for the feeling to act. You act, and the feeling follows. That is the secret that old couples know. Love is a verb, not a noun. Now, let's talk about the future. If you are young, you worry about whether your love will last. You see the statistics. You see your friends break up. You are scared. That is normal. But instead of being scared, be curious. Ask yourself, what can I learn today about this person? What have I not asked yet? What do they need that I am not giving? Stay curious. Curiosity is the enemy of boredom, and boredom is the enemy of love. If you are old, you worry about time. You wonder how many years you have left. You wonder if you have wasted any. Do not waste the time you have now by worrying about the time you have lost. Be here. Be now. Tell them what they mean to you. Not in a general way. In a specific way. Thank you for the way you laughed at my joke yesterday. Thank you for being patient when I was grumpy. Specific gratitude is a superpower. Use it before it is too late. And here is a tip for everyone. Write a letter. Not an email. Not a text. A real letter. On paper. Tell them what you love about them. Tell them a memory you never want to forget. Seal it. Give it to them for no reason. That letter will become a treasure. Years later, after everything changes, that letter will still be there. Words on paper do not disappear. They are anchors. Let's talk about space. Love does not mean being together every minute. Young people sometimes think that love means constant contact. They check locations. They get anxious if there is no reply for 2 hours. That is not love. That is fear. Love trusts. Love gives room to breathe. If you are young, practice being apart without being anxious. Do your own things. Miss each other. Then come back. The reunion is sweeter when you have not been attached at the hip. Old people sometimes have the opposite problem. They have so much space that they forget to come back together. They live in the same house, but different rooms. They do not share the small things anymore. If that is you, create a daily checkpoint. 10 minutes every evening where you sit together and talk about nothing important. The weather, a memory, a dream you had. Just 10 minutes. No phones. That is not too much to ask. Now I want to speak directly to the young people who are listening. You have grown up with so much information about love. Movies, songs, social media, advice columns. Everyone tells you what love should look like. It should be effortless. It should be exciting. It should make you feel complete. That is a beautiful lie. Real love is effort. Real love is boring sometimes. Real love does not complete you. You are already complete. Love adds flavor to a life that already has substance. Do not expect one person to be your everything. That is too much weight for any human. Have friends. Have hobbies. Have purpose. And then share your fullness with someone. That is healthier. And now to the older people. You grew up with different myths. You were told that love is sacrifice. That you should stay no matter what. That divorce is failure. That your own happiness is not as important as keeping the family together. Those are also lies. Love is not self-destruction. Love does not require you to disappear. You are allowed to want happiness. You are allowed to leave if the relationship is broken beyond repair. And you are also allowed to stay and work on it. Both are valid. The only wrong choice is to stay and suffer silently while pretending everything is fine. Be honest. With yourself first. Let me tell you something that both generations need to hear. Love is not a competition. You do not have to be the one who loves more or less. You do not have to keep score. Scorekeeping is poison. It turns a relationship into a transaction. Instead of asking, who did what last time, ask, what can I do this time? Give without counting. Not because you are a martyr, but because giving feels good. When you give love freely, without expecting something back, you are free. The moment you start counting, you become a prisoner of your own ledger. I have been talking for a while now. You might be wondering if there is one final secret. One thing that makes love last. There is. It is not communication. It is not compromise. It is not even trust. It is kindness. Kindness is the foundation of everything. When you are kind, you listen. When you are kind, you apologize. When you are kind, you do not humiliate. When you are kind, you remember the small things. Kindness is not weakness. It is the strongest force in any relationship. Be kind to your partner. Be kind to yourself. And when you cannot be kind, be quiet until you can. So here we are at the end of this hour. I do not know how old you are. I do not know if you are in love, or waiting for love, or healing from love. But I know that you are here. You listened. That means something. It means you care. And caring is where love begins. Not with grand speeches. Not with perfect bodies. Not with expensive gifts. With caring. With showing up. with choosing again and again to see the person next to you. You do not need to be young to start. You do not need to be old to understand. You just need to be willing. Willing to try. Willing to fail and try again. Willing to be awkward. Willing to be vulnerable. That is the only requirement. So go now. Send the text. Make the tea. Touch their hand. Say the words. You have time. Not forever, but enough. Enough to love and be loved. And that, after all, is the whole point. But let me stay with you for a little longer. Because knowing the point is one thing. Living it is another. So let me walk you through what it actually looks like to love as a practice, not just a feeling. Because feelings are like weather. They change. But practice is like a river. It keeps flowing, even when the surface is still. So what does practice look like on a Tuesday morning when you are already late and they forgot to buy milk? Practice looks like taking a breath before you speak. Like saying it's okay even when you are annoyed. Like kissing them goodbye anyway. That is not hypocrisy. That is love choosing itself over being right. What does practice look like on a Friday night when you are both exhausted and neither of you wants to cook? Practice looks like ordering pizza without complaining. Like sitting on the floor because the couch feels too far apart. Like laughing at nothing because the silence became too heavy. Practice is not heroic. It is just present. And here is something that no one tells you about love. Sometimes love looks like leaving. Not running away, but stepping back so the other person can grow. Letting them take that job in another city. Encouraging them to go to therapy alone. Saying, I will wait, but I will not hold you back. That is also love. The hardest kind. The kind that does not cling. The kind that says, your happiness matters more than my comfort. Young people often think that love means never letting go. They hold on so tight that they crush what they are trying to keep. Old people sometimes let go too easily. They stop fighting. They say if they wanted to stay, they would. Both are wrong. Love holds gently, like holding a bird. Not so tight that it cannot breathe. Not so loose that it flies away. Just enough to feel its warmth. So how do you know if you are holding too tight or too loose? You ask. You say, are you happy? And you listen to the answer. Not just the words. The silence after the words. The way they look down. The way their shoulders drop. You learn to read the body because the mouth lies sometimes, but the body rarely does. That takes time. That takes attention. That is why love is not for the lazy. Now let me tell you about the gifts that only time can give. When you love someone for years, you build a shared language. A single word can mean an entire story. A glance can say, remember that terrible vacation? A certain smell can bring back 20 years in 1 second. That is the treasure of long love. You cannot buy it. You cannot rush it. You can only earn it day by staying. But here is the danger of long love. You start to assume. You assume they know you love them. You assume they know you are grateful. You assume they know you still desire them. Assumptions are silent killers. Do not assume. Say it. Say, I still choose you. Say, I am glad you are here. Say, you look beautiful today, and not just because of how you look, but because of who you are. Say it even if it feels awkward. Especially if it feels awkward. Awkward is honest. Smooth is sometimes a performance. If you are young and reading this, you might be afraid of awkwardness. You want love to look like the movies. Effortless. Cool. Full of perfect lighting. That is not real. Real love is messy. It is saying the wrong thing and then laughing about it. It is crying in a parked car. It is admitting you are scared. That is not weakness. That is courage. The courage to be seen without armor. If you are older, you might have built very thick armor over the years. You have been hurt. You have learned not to show too much. You have learned to be self-sufficient. But self-sufficiency is not the goal of love. Interdependence is. Letting someone help you. Letting someone see you cry. Letting someone bring you soup when you are sick. That is not losing independence. That is gaining intimacy. So, let me give you a small challenge. Before this day ends, do one thing that you have been too proud or too scared to do. Apologize for something you did 3 years ago. Say, I love you first, without waiting for them to say it. Ask for a hug and stay there for 10 full seconds. That is 10 seconds of vulnerability. It will not kill you. It might even save you. Now let's talk about the relationship you have with yourself. Because you cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot give love if you have none for yourself. That is not selfish. That is physics. So be gentle with your own heart. Forgive yourself for past mistakes in love. For staying too long. For leaving too soon. For saying things you cannot take back. You were doing the best you could with what you knew. Now you know more. So do better. But do not hate yourself for what you did not know. Young people often hate themselves for being inexperienced. They compare their messy love to the curated love they see online. That is a trap. No one posts the fight about the dishes. No one posts the silent car ride home. You are seeing highlights, not the full movie. Your messy love is normal. It is human. Do not let the internet convince you that you are broken. Old people sometimes hate themselves for letting their bodies change. They think they are no longer desirable. That is also a lie. Desire is not only about youth. Desire is about presence. About the way you laugh. About the way you listen. About the safety you create. Those things do not age. They deepen. So stop apologizing for your wrinkles. They are maps of a life lived. And someone who loves you wants to read that map. Let me end with this. Love is not a problem to be solved. It is a mystery to be lived. You will never have all the answers. You will never be perfectly secure. You will never be completely understood. And that is okay. The goal is not perfection. The goal is connection. And connection happens in the cracks. In the misunderstandings that get resolved. In the tears that get wiped away. In the hand that reaches out in the dark. So do not wait until you are ready. You will never be ready. Do not wait until you are sure. You will never be completely sure. Do not wait until you have healed all your wounds. Some wounds stay tender forever. Love anyway. Reach out anyway. Try anyway. Because the only real failure in love is not trying at all. You have time. Not forever. But enough. Enough to love and be loved. Enough to learn and forgive. Enough to hold someone and be held. So go now. Not tomorrow. Today. Send the message you have been drafting in your head. Say the words you have been swallowing. Touch the hand that is waiting. Because love is not only found in candlelight and soft music. It is also found in waiting. In forgiving. In holding on when everything inside you wants to run. And there is an ancient book that has spoken about this kind of love for thousands of years. The Bible. Not as a weapon. Not as a rule book. But as a mirror. A mirror that shows us what patience looks like when it breathes. You have probably heard the famous words from 1 Corinthians, chapter 13. They are read at weddings so often that they have become almost background noise. But listen to them again, slowly, as if for the first time. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. Those words are not a poem. They are a diagnosis. They describe a way of being that is almost impossible without help. Patience. Not losing your temper when the same mistake happens for the 100th time. Kindness. Speaking softly when you would rather shout. Not keeping score. Letting go of the mental list of every time they disappointed you. That is not natural. That is supernatural. And that is why love is also a discipline. Let me give you a real-life example of that kind of patience. I knew a woman named Margaret. She was 78 years old when her husband, Thomas, began to forget things. First his keys, then her name, then how to use a fork. The doctors called it Alzheimer's. Margaret called it her last chance to love him well. Every morning, she woke up at 5, made his favorite oatmeal, and helped him dress. He would ask her the same question 20 times. What is your name? And 20 times she would answer, Margaret, your wife. He would look at her with confusion and sometimes with fear. And she would smile. Not a fake smile. A real one. Because underneath the confusion, she still saw the man who had danced with her in the kitchen for 50 years. One day, a neighbor asked her, isn't it exhausting? He doesn't even know who you are anymore. Margaret looked at the neighbor and said, I know who he is. And that is enough. That is love that keeps no record of wrongs. That is love that always perseveres. That is not romantic in a Hollywood way, but it is holy. Now let me give you an example from a young couple. His name was David. He was 24. Hers was Elena, 22. They had been dating for 2 years when David lost his job. Not a small job. His dream job. He fell into a depression that lasted months. He stopped showering. He stopped calling. He stopped being the funny, charming man Elena had fallen for. Her friends told her to leave. "You are too young to carry this weight," they said. "He needs to fix himself first." Elena listened. Then she stayed. Not because she was weak. Because she had read somewhere that love is not a feeling but a promise. She brought him soup. She sat on his floor when he could not get out of bed. She did not fix him. She just stayed. After 8 months, David started therapy. A year later, he proposed. At their wedding, he said, "You loved me when I was unlovable. That is why I know your love is real." That is patience. Not the patience of a saint. The patience of someone who understands that all humans break and that love is the glue that holds the pieces together until they heal. The Bible talks about this in another place. The Apostle Paul wrote to the Romans, "Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer." Patient in affliction. That means when your partner is irritable because of stress at work, you do not match their irritation. When they withdraw because of old wounds, you do not punish them with silence. When they fail you, you do not immediately hand them a list of their failures. You breathe. You wait. You pray if you pray. Or you just hope. Here is another real-life example. A man named Joseph. He was 45. His wife, Sarah, had an affair 6 years ago. They decided to stay together. But the staying was harder than anyone told them. Every time Sarah was late, Joseph's stomach would turn. Every time she smiled at her phone, his mind would race. He wanted to forgive. He wanted to trust again. But the images would not leave. Joseph went to a counselor who told him something surprising. Patience, the counselor said, does not mean pretending it didn't happen. Patience means allowing time to do its work. You cannot rush healing. You cannot force trust. So Joseph made a decision. Every morning, he would say to Sarah, "I am choosing to trust you today, even if it scares me." And Sarah would say, "I am choosing to be worthy of that trust today, even if it is hard." That went on for 2 years. 2 years of small steps. 2 years of setbacks and breakthroughs. Today, they are not the same couple they were before the affair. They are a different couple. Older. Wiser. More real. That is patience. That is love that always hopes. The book of Proverbs has a line that is often quoted in wooden plaques. "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." But guarding your heart does not mean building walls. It means being careful who you give it to. And once you give it, being careful how you treat the heart that has been given to you. I want to tell you about a couple who understood this. They were not famous. They were not rich. Their names were Henry and Clara. They were married for 62 years. When Henry was 85, he had a stroke that paralyzed his left side. He could no longer walk. He could barely speak. Clara was 83 and had arthritis in both hands. But every day, she would will him to the window so he could see the birds. She would hold his hand, even though it hurt her fingers. She would read him the newspaper, even though he could not respond. One day, Henry moved his right hand with great effort and touched her face. He tried to speak. It came out as a whisper, but she understood. He said, "Thank you." That was the last word he ever spoke. He died 3 days later. At his funeral, Clara said, "He gave me 62 years of laughter. I gave him 3 months of holding his hand. I would do it again. Every time." That is the love that the Bible calls hesed in Hebrew. It is a word that does not translate perfectly into English. It means loving kindness, loyal love, the love that stays when staying is hard, the love that does not run when running would be easier. Now let me speak to the young person listening. You might think that patience is boring. That real love should be passionate and spontaneous and never feel like work. I understand. I was young once too, but here is what I have learned. Passion is a fire. It needs wood. And patience is the one who brings the wood, even when the fire has died down to embers. Without patience, the fire goes out completely. With patience, the embers can be fanned into flame again and again. I have another real-life example. A couple in their early 30s. They had 2 small children, both under 4. Their life was chaos. Sleepless nights. Dirty laundry everywhere. No time for dates. No energy for sex. They loved each other, but they did not like each other very much most days. The wife, whose name was Rachel, said to her husband, "I do not feel romantic toward you anymore. I am too tired." He said, "I know. Me neither." Most couples would have panicked. They would have thought the love was dead. But Rachel and her husband had been taught that love is patient. So they did not demand passion. They did not force date nights. Instead, they made a small agreement. Every night, after the children were asleep, they would sit on the couch for 15 minutes. No phones. No talking about chores. Just sitting. Sometimes they held hands. Sometimes they did not. Sometimes they talked. Sometimes they just stared at the wall. After 3 months of this, something shifted. One night, Rachel laughed at something silly her husband said. He looked at her and saw a glimpse of the woman he had married. A week later, they kissed for the first time in months. Not a passionate kiss. A gentle one. A curious one. That kiss led to another. And slowly, without pressure, the fire came back. Not the wildfire of their 20s. A different fire. A hearth fire. Warm. Steady. Reliable. That is patience. Not waiting for a miracle. Creating small spaces where a miracle can happen. The Bible says in Ecclesiastes that there is a time for everything. A time to tear and a time to mend. A time to be silent and a time to speak. In love, there is a time to fight and a time to rest. A time to demand change and a time to accept imperfection. Knowing which time it is, that is wisdom. And wisdom only comes with practice. And failure. And time. Let me give you one more real-life example. This one is about a man who thought he had lost his marriage. His name was Peter. He was 52. His wife, Linda, had moved into the guest bedroom 6 months ago. They barely spoke. When they did, it was about bills or the children. Peter had given up. He was already imagining divorce. Then he heard a sermon about the Good Shepherd. The shepherd leaves the 99 sheep to find the one that is lost. Peter realized that he had stopped looking for Linda. He had stopped asking who she was becoming. He had assumed she was the same woman he married 30 years ago. She was not. And neither was he. So Peter did something awkward. He knocked on the guest bedroom door one evening and said, "Can we start over?" Not as husband and wife. Just as 2 humans who want to know each other again. Linda was suspicious. She thought it was a trick. But she said yes. They began to have coffee together every morning. 10 minutes. No agenda. They talked about their childhoods. Their fears. Their dreams that had died. After 2 months, Linda moved back into their bedroom. Not because the problems were solved. Because they had remembered that underneath the problems were 2 people who were lonely. And loneliness is the enemy of love. Attention is its friend. The Bible says in 1 Peter, above all, love each other deeply, because love covers over a multitude of sins. That does not mean you pretend sin does not exist. It means you do not let every mistake become a wall. You forgive. You move on. You cover the wound with a bandage, not with salt. That is what patience does. It covers. It protects. It hopes. So here is what I want you to take with you. Real love is not the absence of problems. It is the presence of patience. Real love is not finding a perfect person. It is seeing an imperfect person perfectly, not with illusion, but with mercy. Real love is not a feeling that lasts forever. It is a decision that you make again and again, every morning, sometimes every hour. You do not need to be a saint to practice this. You just need to be willing. Willing to wait when you want to walk away. Willing to speak gently when you want to shout. Willing to stay when every cell in your body says run. That is not weakness. That is the strongest thing a human being can do. And when you cannot be patient, when your own heart is too tired or too hurt, there is another word from the Bible that helps. My grace is sufficient for you, For my power is made perfect in weakness. You do not have to be patient all by yourself. You can ask for help. From friends, from counselors, from God if you believe, or just from the silence. The silence that holds you when you have nothing left to give. Now go, not to a perfect love, to a real one. One that has cracks and scars and stories. One that sometimes fails and then tries again. One that reads ancient words and finds them still true. Love never fails. Not because lovers are perfect, because love itself is stronger than our failures. Thank you for walking this road with me a little longer. Now go, be patient, be kind, be real, and let yourself be loved the same way.